Alright, so I'm back with a new video, and I wanted to talk about freedom of speech and why I think it's pretty much a necessity and it's going to be a requirement for human civilization and society to continue. But before I go into that, I want you to go ahead and go check out my Rumble or Minds. They're my alt tech that I post on. If you were to go follow or sub to those, I'd greatly appreciate it. But let's go ahead and continue on to this. So, when it comes to freedom of speech, there's multiple factors that you got to take into place. Of course, you're going to have some speech that's going to be abhorrent. You're going to have some pretty gnarly people, right? Of course, there's going to be that in pretty much every group. Like, you're going to have your racists, you're going to have your radicals, extremists, and those can be in any particular ethnic group or belief system. You're going to have problems in any branch of society, any sort of group or culture. There's always something in it. It doesn't mean that the whole is that, though, if that you get what I mean. So when it comes to freedom of speech and freedom of expression, life, and not even in my opinion, this is just a straight fact, life is going to be dull and miserable if everyone wants to be more conformist and for the greater whole as a collective. You're just going to be one doled out drone. Going for individualism doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, it's just me and fuck everybody else, screw them. It's more of, you're for the individual. You're for the individual being able to freely be themselves, believe what they want, hold their opinions, have their values, have their speech, etc. Let them have it. But of course, individualists also still care about community and taking care of community. We just don't see the point in centralizing everything to a government that's going to probably screw us all over, or not even probably will screw us all over. We look at other factors. Oh, well, we should ban or censor hate speech, things like racism, things like transphobia, so on. Now, I morally agree that, sure, yes, that kind of speech is, it's not good. It's abhorrent, it's egregious, it's really disgusting behavior. But if we just censor these people and throw them off into these little corners and areas where they fester together because they got nowhere else to go, it's gonna magnify the issue. It's gonna make them more radical. It's gonna make them more extremists. That is all going to lead to more aggression and more likely to act, which is bad. So if we were to leave it to where we hold freedom of speech, we don't censor anything, we will see racism and transphobia, like if it's genuine, right? Not just racist, just because they're freaking saying, hey, take care of your health, right? Now, we shouldn't be censoring these, even though I disagree with that, with those types of ideologies. Say, if there's someone spouting racist crap, like kill all, like let's just say lizard people, but like, alright, let's say, sure, I could probably get down on that, jokes aside, Mark Zuckerberg. Anyway, jokes aside on that crap. If we leave it open, people will self-ostracize from society. They will be, with their terrible behavior and ignorance, society will naturally cast them astray and not want to partake with them and kind of just start minding their own business. And if these people that self-ostracize themselves are left alone in these groups, they're there and they understand that they're there and that they have their freedom, so they still know that they can speak and express. But that's better because it allows them to become less aggressive, even if they still hold some sort of strong, terrible ideological belief or extremist like values or beliefs. We should let it stay. It's just like another benefit to it. Here's another pro of freedom of speech is the fact that you can convince people that may have different worldviews to change their perspective. Or you can talk to someone who has a different perspective from you and you can somehow possibly come to a compromise. Like, okay, like I won't agree on this and you won't agree on this, but what if we were to come into something in the center that kind of works for both of us, but it's not necessarily what we fully want, but it's something we can at least agree on. That's another power of freedom of speech. And freedom of expression goes far too, especially with how you want to put yourself out there. And we look at Daryl Davis, the musician, the African American musician, he dedicated a part of his time to getting Klansmen to denounce their ways. He got about 300 plus KKK members, if I'm remembering off the top of my head correctly. It's 200 or 300 plus, to denounce their ways, to change their beliefs, just based on conversation. He would just talk to them, and it would change their beliefs. Because, as he put it, and I believe it was in a Joe Rogan podcast, he said that most of them were just ignorant. They've never spoken to a black man. They were foreign to the concept of even approaching and talking to one. They didn't know that they would just be as human as anyone else, because the ignorance, right? And so being able to talk to an African American changed their perspective and humanized him. And he was able to change nearly 300 or 300 plus people's ways in life. That's still a lot of people, especially the KKK, which shows the power that freedom of speech can hold when these people are spouting their ideals and we're aware of them, and they're already kind of self-ostracized as is, and someone still takes the bravery to go over there and talk to them and try to understand why and express themselves and share opinions, and it comes to something good most of the time. Even if the conversation's hard, it's the best way. There was a lady of Asian ethnicity. I don't know exactly which, right? But she was inspired by Daryl Davis, if I'm also remembering that correctly. And so she started talking to some white supremacists and Klansmen. And she ended up convincing some of them as well to denounce their ways and to change for the better. And she also said that it was just because of ignorance. They never spoke to an African American. And it was pretty much kind of the same thing that Daryl Davis said. It was mostly just ignorance. And she said that one of them she would visit like every day or every other day, and they would have meetings and talk and express and talk about their worldviews and why they have them. And at first he was like really racist to her and derogatory, didn't like her at all, but was still willing to talk because he was like, this is new. I've never had the opportunity, I'll take it. And then by like the fourth interview, he was calling her his sister, like in arms. He's like, he cared about her. He's seen her in a human light. And he was scared that his fellow Klansmen would not like him for that. And so he wouldn't speak about it really much other than to her. And so he changed his ways and his ideals. He realized he was wrong, and it was due to ignorance. Freedom of speech allows you to take ideas or worldviews or opinions that may be right, may be wrong, and to discuss them. Instead of censoring it because it is wrong or censoring it because we deem it to be wrong, even though it's completely correct because we don't want you to see it. Nothing to see here, move along, right? Nothing. No, it's so good to have it. That's all there really is to it. It's too many benefits to let go of. The moment you get rid of freedom of speech and expression, society dies, and a collective is born, and a hive mind is born, and human suffering only comes from it. That's why it's a revolutionary idea that freedom of speech has been implemented. It's great. Without being able to talk to someone else and communicate your different ideals, opinions, etc., I don't even think we would have been able to make it this far. The reason Joe Rogan, for example, has such a powerful platform is because he allows people to come on and express themselves, even if he disagrees with them, or they might even be shills. It's just because he wants to understand someone's worldview and opinions, because he's genuinely curious and he knows majority of humans mean well. And we need to bring that back, and I think he is, and so are many others. Discussion's important, and that's another thing of freedom of speech. It allows us to have those discussions. It allows us to keep society on track. It allows us to not fester into these slippery slopes that become dangerous when governments get a hold of certain powers. Now, that's all really. I could go on for a while, but I just really wanted to speak about the First Amendment, mostly just on the freedom of speech and expression part. It's important that it never dies, and never let anybody tell you that it's not essential. It's essential, always. Now, thanks for watching. Definitely go and check out my alt tech down in the description or comments pinned down below. And hey, take it easy. Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.